Hi, my name is Tara St. James, and I'm the owner and creative director of Study New York, an ethical contemporary women's wear brand based here in New York City. We use socially responsible and environmentally friendly materials and production methods for all of our production. So I've kind of coined the term internal moral compass when it comes to fashion design because sustainability is such a broad, complex term for something that is really interpreted very differently by different designers. And so for me, I created a checklist of sustainable strategies over the years. How I got started was I was working for another company about 10 years ago, and I was doing all the sourcing and fabric buying in China. And at the time, organic cotton was hard to find, but it was starting to become popular. And so that really allowed me to start researching the background behind how organic cotton is made. And what ended up happening was that catapulted me into researching all of my production methods and all of my fabrics and the impacts that all of my production had basically on the environment, but also on the people who were making it. I think rather than trying to enforce these principles, I think design students should be allowed to come to an understanding of what different sustainable strategies are and which ones are most meaningful to them. Because if you don't believe in sustainability as a strategy, then it will show through in your designs and it will show through in your sourcing. And I think everybody willingly does something right. I think the most important thing that's had an impact on my design sensibility and on my life has been working really closely with the manufacturers. And I started doing that when I moved my production here to New York, when I started study in 2009. Prior to that was producing in China and didn't have very much involvement in the people who were making the clothes that I was designing. And when I moved it to New York, I was able to visit the factory pretty much every day, even though I'm sure they don't want me there every day. And I could meet the people who were sewing the clothes and meet the people who were making the patterns. And knowing that and knowing who they were and what they looked like and how they were doing what they were doing for me made a real impact on the way that I designed, but also on the fabrics I was using, on the chemical dyes that I was using. So it made a big difference in the way that I saw sustainability with relation to the people that I was working with. At the end of the day, I always say design comes first. So I think using sustainability as a crutch for sales is not a way to go. I think you have to lead with design and consumers have to want to buy your clothes. And that's the most important thing at the end of the day. And then the way you produce your clothing comes next. And that should be very thoughtful. It should be well guided. It should be educated. But you first and foremost have to lead with good, strong, solid design. I hope to see a wide variety of sustainable strategies. I think a lot of people have fallen to the trap of just using organic cotton or just using hemp or just using one material or one production method. And I think there's so many different varieties out there. Zero waste pattern making for one thing, upcycling, using natural dyes or using less toxic dyes. So there's so many different things that designers can do. There's such a wide variety of choices that they can make. Not everybody has to do the same thing. So I would really like to see the next generation of designers really tackle different strategies. And one of the big ones that I've seen coming out is technology in fashion. And I think there's been sort of a disconnect until very recently. And so I'd love to see designers looking into different production methods and different technologies. One, always be nice to people because you never know who's going to be able to help you down the road. You never know who they're going to introduce you to. So the garment district is a great example of that. If you ask your pattern maker if they know a good grader, they'll connect you. And then your grader will connect you to a good cutting facility. And that cutting facility can connect you to the best manufacturer for your goods. And so the only way to really get those connections and get people to connect you one step at a time is to be nice to them. The second thing is to really understand how a garment is made and not just sketch it out and expect it to be made by someone else, to really deep dive into how different products are made and what the best finishes are for them, because that to me is integral to good design.